Okay, so we're gonna we're gonna do a brief update on what happened on what happened today. Venezuela news. So bear with me while okay I connect this thing. Okay, so we're gonna do an update in English. As I've said before, we have been live streaming a lot in Spanish, and we wanted to start doing it in English because, well, that's our main audience is either monolingual English speakers or bilingual. So we're gonna do this in English. So okay, I just want to do a brief update on what happened today and a little bit on what happened during the week. A lot has happened in a week. Weeks in Venezuela are like it's as if we were gonna be about to celebrate the new year. Um, so much has happened. So uh, I don't know where we left it last time, but after a lot of talk of conspiracies during last week, there were rumors that the military were gonna overthrow Delcy, then that the military were gonna go after Diosdado, then the oil deal thing started happening, and suddenly you see Diosdado Cabello, who is like the executor of violence in Venezuela, dressed in a suit and playing by the rules. So obviously, a lot happened last week, and this week was all about uh, Maria Corina Machado's visit to the White House, which happened today, and about that and the reaction of the Del Sinato, the Rodriguez and Co, the uh, interim leadership of Venezuela. Yesterday, one day before Maria Corina finally was going to have her meeting with Trump, Trump announced, or Trump, during a press briefing, during a press event at the Oval Office, said that he had a conversation with Delcy Rodriguez, and and that she was a wonderful, a terrific woman, and that everything was going great. Um, that was I don't know if that was like an attempt that came more from the Venezuelan leadership to sort of have this contact with Trump just before Maria Corina met with him. We also know that Felix Plasencia, who is Venezuela's ambassador to the UK, was supposed to have a meeting today, which we don't have details of. But let's dive right into it. So Maria Corina went today to the White House. Um, you know, uh, the Earlier this week we published a piece where we argued that Delcy at this moment is kind of more convenient for Trump than Machado, because Delcy has no mandate from the people. She doesn't have to respond to Venezuelans because she is part of an autocratic structure, a dictatorship. So she has, she doesn't have to respond to the Venezuelan people. On the other hand, Maria Corina is acting under a mandate. Maria Corina slash Edmundo Gonzalez, who, for those of you who don't know, is kind of the stand-in that Maria Corina put in to represent her in the elections, and who won the elections by 70%, almost 70% of the vote. And as we argued in our piece, they're constrained by that mandate and also empowered by it. But that means that they have to actually represent the Venezuelan people. So if at this moment, if if the and I say if because it's one thing is to remove Maduro, another thing is to remove the whole Chavista structure to be able to impose the rightful government. If they were like at the helm of the country, it would be very likely that they would push back a little bit harder than Delcy Rodriguez over this kind of tutelage or over the control that Trump is looking to exact over the Venezuelan oil industry and over how to run the country. She for sure would have been more uncomfortable. And even when she's not in that position, she may be kind of a complicated issue for Trump at this moment. I think that the original ask of enforcing the July 28, 2024 mandate and having sworn in and having Edmundo Gonzalez sworn in, I think that they are over that. Machado has already spoken about if Venezuela holds new presidential elections, that they're going to win by 90%. So I think that conversation is over. Probably, there are many Machado critics that at this moment it feels a little bit like there's more Machado critics than Delcy critics online, but they were saying like, oh, see how they were the first to forget about Edmundo González Urrutia. And I think that it's just reality, and it makes sense to sort of change the mindset. And we were discussing at another stream today earlier that what could Maria Corina Machado ask from Trump during that meeting. I think that one thing that would make sense to ask was protection for her to return to Venezuela and start campaigning. And let's call it campaigning, because I don't think that for Trump or Rubio it would be convenient for her to go back and start a street mobilizations to kind of go try to enforce the result of the July elections, because it would kind of disrupt this relative peace that they created after removing Maduro. So I think that it's very likely that the ask was protection to return to the country, probably to campaign. It would make sense also for her to ask for some sort of blanket protection for Venezuelans in terms of I don't know, public officials that may turn so they can be added to a political effort eventually, and also probably a good ask from her would be to have Trump politely request that she be requalified to run in an election. Elections in Venezuela are not in the horizon right now, but it's part of the discussion. There is no clarity over when when this the mechanism can be activated. There is a whole constitutional discussion over well, it's constitutional, but Chavista law on whether elections should be called, whether Maduro's situation is an absolute absence, and if that happens, elections should be called in 30 days, under 30 days. should be called, no, should be done within 30 days, or whether it's temporary and Delcy has 90 days that can be extended for 90 more and probably extended ad infinitum. But we know that this is something that, at least in Marco Rubio's head, is must be somewhere. I don't know if on top of mind, but at least the 5 bullet points that he must have over Venezuela, one of them should be elections. So it's a place that we're supposed to, arrive sometime. But in the meantime, this is being streamed through Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. I recommend that you guys go into YouTube because it's easier to have the conversation there. That way I can pin any comments. And, right now I don't have someone to riff off, but I can riff off from your comments. I just wanted to give an update on what happened, or on what we know that to this moment. Hey, Pablo, how are you? On what we know about the Trump meeting, which is very little. We know that Machado is supposed to have some sort of press conference to discuss this in detail tomorrow. And for now, what we know is that, well, because it was a closed lunch, we know that Trump gave a sort of tour of the White House after lunch or before lunch. I don't know. Probably they went into the MAGA hat room, and he walked her through the hall with all the president's photos and the commentary added by his administration. And there's not a lot more. There has been a couple of comments about the way that she was that she entered the White House. It was kind of like it wasn't like a presidential reception, but I think that there was kind of like a strategy there, because in the end, the Trump administration has to balance the relationship between Machado and Delcy, that weird love triangle. One big question that was going around was whether she was going to give him the Nobel Peace Prize, her medal. At some point, we thought that she was going to give her like a symbolic token of the Nobel Peace Prize, or a fake medal, but it has been confirmed that it was the original medal. I'm guessing that, I don't know, she didn't care so much about the medal and probably thought that that the gesture would go a longer way. She did kind of came up with a historic parallel that I thought it was kind of elegant, but still, probably from her perspective, it's just an object, and it could get, she didn't really care to get rid of it. But what she said was that General Lafayette once gave Simon Bolivar a medal with a face of George Washington, and that this gesture was kind of a historic parallel to that, where a Venezuelan, in representation of the Venezuelan people, gave Trump a token of peace. Again, I think it was an elegant exit, and on the other hand, I do believe that she thinks that probably she didn't care so much about the medal and gave it to him. But again, there's been a lot of talk around that. I saw that Breitbart was like focused on that point. I feel that there is like that. I don't want to call it hard right, but it's like that MAGA angle where they don't really like Machado. It's kind of like the Tucker Carlson angle, saying that Maduro was more conservative than Maria Corina. And I saw an interview that or some sort of contact that 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 Breitbart's Bannon did with one guy from Derecha Diario, and they were saying like, okay, like en dos platos, Trump really doesn't care about this lady, like belittling the whole thing, and saying also that Machado got mad because there was a press briefing with Caroline Levitt during her lunch, but we knew that it was a closed door lunch, probably a good thing. There were, just to avoid kind of a Zelensky moment that probably wouldn't have happened if Marco Rubio was there, because in the end, he's an actual ally of Machado. But, let's see some comments here. Pablo says that Delcy was certainly hurt by the meeting between Maria Corina and Trump when she said today during her speech she would never crawl to the White House. Okay, she said she would never crawl to the White House, but she said that she would walk with her head high. That I think that in the end, she would have wanted to go there. I don't think that she. We don't know what happened. We don't know if she was invited. We know that her Rodriguez and Co. did big efforts to counter Maria Corina's visit to the White House today, and one of those counters was being able to send an envoy to have another meeting, which probably was with Rick Grenell. So Frick says it's just another sign of submission. I don't know if it will have more impact than propaganda. Well, yeah, I don't know that either. So, but talking about submission, the other point, the other important thing that I wanted to sort of like bring in today has to do with oil. We know that last week Trump had his meeting with Big Oil. There was a lot of expectation toward the meeting, and to see what sort of like what did the Big Oil CEOs had to say about this investment opportunity in Venezuela. And it wasn't surprising that some comments that came out of the meeting were concerned about the legal framework under which some companies are working in Venezuela, about security, about being able to have some legal guarantees over contracts and projects, and over sanctions, and security on the ground, and all the things that we know that have been a problem for oil companies in Venezuela. That's not surprising at all. But at the same time, Exxon, that was the Exxon CEO, was kind of the big headline of the meeting. In the end, they said, but we're still going to send a team to inspect and to analyze the facilities that we have there, and whatever was left for projects, and to see if it's worth it jumping back in. Probably the answer is going to be, probably they're not going to make a huge investment, but it's likely that some of these big oil companies are going to return. Medium-sized oil companies are likely to return as well. Also, there were some comments by the Halliburton CEO today saying that they were ready to start and looking forward to see those sanctions or lifted, and that they're ready to work. We know from the ground that most of these oil service companies, which is for them it's easy because in the end the kind of guarantees that they need is or around their contracts and being paid on time, but they're actually on the ground. Halliburton is on the ground. That's why they're saying that they can jump back in really quickly, and they have been working there. They worked there during the Biden era contracts. So it's likely that we're going to see movement quickly. We have to see what happens with the licenses and sanctions. Um, Chevron was waiting for an expanded license to work in Venezuela, but it's very important to see if the other Western companies are gonna get that relief too, or if there's going to be a blanket lifting of the sanctions. I think that a lot of that has to do with what can be achieved on the diplomatic side, but also on how the Del Senate, the Rodriguez and Co. are responding to pressure from Trump. One thing that was interesting today, after the big headline last week, was the Exxon CEO saying that the legal framework was a mess. And what he means about the legal framework is the following: apart from the PDVSA's big oil partners, China and Russia and the U.S. have been asking for years to have the whole legal structure of the oil business to be reformed, so they can have a bigger stake of the business. Since achieving that wasn't easy because there was a lot of pushback within Chavismo. Especially to touch the hydrocarbons law, and even probably that you would have to make a couple of tweaks to the Constitution, to get what they actually wanted. They found sort of like a workaround to Venezuelan legislation and to sanctions, which was in the anti-blockade law, which is kind of a blanket confidentiality agreement for whoever is doing business in Venezuela, and at the same time, it's and to help to protect from sanctions, and on the other hand, to circumvent Venezuelan legislation, it allowed for a parallel contractual framework that allowed these oil companies to get a larger participation from the oil projects that they were involved in. That participation in Venezuelan oil is via joint ventures, in which the Venezuelan state needs to have more than 50%, and what they do with this framework is go around that, and these companies can have a bigger take of whatever they produce in this, in their projects. So one of the things that happened today that I think that it's relevant, it's Delcy answering to that headline and probably a direct request from the Trump administration. They introduced a reform of the hydrocarbons law that actually touches on that particular point. But it's not as profound probably as big oil would want. We're probably going to see that later, but at this moment, what they're doing is they're legalizing the framework from the anti-blockade law, because that framework is actually illegal because it contravenes the hydrocarbons law and the Constitution. So what they're doing with this is kind of like giving a legal blessing or christening to this contractual framework. so they can turn to Exxon and whoever is worried about it and say, okay, now this kind of agreement is actually legal because it's according to the hydrocarbons law. Okay, before we keep going on this, there's other comments here. Guillermo says, MCA made a bet. Nobody knows if it will work, but at least she tried. I know I would feel more anxious if she had given him a fake token. Okay, yeah, she made a bet. Let's see if it works. Again, I don't think that her ask was remove Delcy and put González Urrutia, because I think that that's a non-starter for the U.S. right now. And Trump has repeated, and Caroline Levitt said it today, that Trump is working wonderfully with Delcy. So I think that her ask was getting protection to go back to the country and to be able to, probably if she's able to go out in the streets and have a presidential campaign as what she pulled out before, I think that it's going to go great for her. But there is a long way to be able to get there. Auntie Jeannie says, it's a shame that U.S. of Venezuela disregards Bolivar Lafayette history as an elegant gesture. Okay. So back with the oil business thing. Delcy was probably answering to a threat, or to the headline of what the Chevron CEO was worried about. So for now, we've seen that they've been fully compliant on the business side, or as well as they can do it. I think that in Chavismo's head, what they are promising is kind of like this Pax Bodegonica, like kind of going back to the point they got to during Biden, where there were like these bubbles and these pockets of the country that were doing kind of well, and that they could show that everything was okay, but it really wasn't, but on steroids now. And I think that Chavismo believes that if they are able to kind of, that as long as they are able to show like this kind of opening over U.S. business, they're going to be able to buy time. So that's where the pressure from Maria Corina to get again, I insist, to get elections as quickly as possible comes into play. And actually, there's in general terms, I've been having a lot of in general terms, I've been having a lot of interviews with foreign media lately, and they ask a lot, what do the Venezuelan people want? It's in and I thought that the survey that The Economist did in the country explains that pretty well. Most Venezuelans are uncomfortable with the way that things went, but most of them are really happy that Maduro isn't there. But I think that a key point of that survey was when they asked if Venezuelans thought that whether there was a light at the end of the tunnel, whether things were going to be better without Maduro, even in the current conditions. And like 80% of them said, yeah, of course. And that they thought that there were good prospects for the country down the road. So that's very telling of how people feel. And it makes sense that nobody wants a foreign military to go into your country to do anything. But again, ask me if I'm happy if Maduro is not in the picture. I'm happy, and I'm happy also that the Chavista structure that remains feels threatened, of course. But I'm still worried about, I think that democracy has to be on top of mind. Um, Many people also believe that the return of democracy is key to have a healthy business in Venezuela, healthy investment, and that is true. Again, it doesn't mean that with this Rodriguez and Coy in place, we're not going to see investment going back. We're going to see it because people want to be early, and because there is an opportunity to get into some things cheaply. But it's not sustainable because right now, because they have a threat on top of them, you can see that maybe we won't see as many political incarcerations, or we're going to see prisoner release, that like the one that it's slowly on its way right now. But in the moment that they start getting pressure in the streets, and that the U.S. that the U.S. either I don't know, changes its policy of pressure over the Venezuelan leadership, they're going to go back to their old ways. And in the way that the way that they do business in Venezuela, investors are, maybe right now they will be in a position of power, but the way that Chavismo works is, they the way that they do business is similar to the way that they rule the country. It's a completely authoritarian strategy and form. So that is not going to change. And we've seen several interviews with former PDVSA President Rafael Ramirez, the one who started taking it apart, saying how when they went from the prior contractual framework to the current JV structures, that Conoco and Chevron didn't want to work with, and he presents it elegantly. But in the end, it was an authoritarian imposition of an illegal deal. So if they stay, they're going to go back to their old ways as soon as they can. So yeah, one thing that has to be key is to sort of like present a clear path to democracy again. Okay, Freak says, at the end, Delcy is applying the doblarse para no partirse, proving Ramos Ayub's point. Yes, that's what she's doing. She's bending to avoid breaking. There was a comment here on Instagram. I'm going to fish it out. She's doing what she was asked to do. Let her finish the job in a short period of time. I don't know if we're talking about Delcy, but in any case, what seems to be the Trump's administration plan is to have, or what they have kind of voiced, is to have Delcy do the dirty work right now, so democracy can come back without having to deal with the consequences. I don't know if that is exactly right. For now, I think that they're comfortable with her. I hope they don't get too comfortable. And again, I think that they're not looking forward to the pushback that they could get from an actual leadership that has a mandate that constrains and empower them to do what's best for the Venezuelan people. Okay, so Paulo says the conundrum MCA is in right now is how to avoid the path that Violeta Chamorro and Aung San Suu Kyi traveled, where democratization failed and their countries went back to dictatorships. Yeah, let's hope that that's not the case. Okay, so okay, hopefully the next time that we do this, I'm gonna have someone to riff off. It's much more fun, but I still wanted to do this live stream to, update you on what happened today and where we are in this whole mess. So one more time, I want to remind you that it's great. That it would be great if you go back to our YouTube account and follow us there. It's much more interesting if you're commenting and activated there, and see what I can do with your comments. Like freedom, there you are. I can just bring them to the screen and show them to the people. So okay, probably we're gonna do this week again, or if something happens, we're gonna jump back right in. And also, we're doing some live streams in Spanish. Go to our YouTube channel. We have a bunch. We did one today before Maria Corina's visit to the. I did one with Rafa today before the visit to the White House, and I don't know. I think it came out fun. So okay, until next time, I'm gonna unplug this thing and have dinner. Bye.